Awesome. So, hi all, welcome to the Meshery development call. So, we have a culture here of getting to know the newcomers first, but I guess there are no newcomers on this call. So, we'll get started with, except, is this an Aditya we know? I get confused. Aditya, could you add your last name to your?
Yeah, just now.
Okay, then we'll start off with the agenda. Uzair, are you on the call?
Yes.
Awesome. Would you like to talk to your topic?
Okay. The first one, that is the added flag to control browser behavior. It is like now what the current implementation was that whether user wants or not, the browser gets open when we run system start. So this is a skip flag -s, which controls whether to open the browser or not. You can see in the video.
Wait, was the okay. So this wasn't a suggestion to include the skip flag in the bash script, but rather in Meshery CTL. And so by the way, so there's a UX kind of design guide for Meshery CLI that might help a little bit with this.
Okay.
But outside of the -s, is there any other form of that flag? Skip, by the way, isn't necessarily well understood that you would be skipping opening the browser. Skip, there is a skip update, which means don't update the system, just do the deployment. So there would probably need to be
skip browser is kind of.
Yeah, that might make some sense. It's definitely explicit.
I have added like my skip browser. I've added, I guess.
Nice. Yep. And so then the demo is, hey, the browser doesn't attempt to open. So that's good.
And there are a few other topics. Would you like to share your screen to talk about that?
Okay, one second. Are you able to see my screen, everyone?
Yep.
So this is about the authentication when the token expires. How to handle that. So the current implementation was in the server. What we're doing is here in the auth middleware, we were checking for the session, and if the session was not valid, we were handling the login handler was called, and we were handling the login. But this was giving the code's wildcard origin error. So so as in the issue tracker, it was mentioned that we should handle this gracefully by displaying the message to the user that your session has expired and you will be logging to the provider UI. So what I did this, I check for the error, what was given by the get session function. Right here, when the session is expired, when there's a two kind of, when the user first comes, he will not have the cookie. So if this is the case, then redirect to the provider UI. And if the case is the cookie is present but the session has expired, So I'm sending the error to the GraphQL request, saying that our token has expired, and I'm handling that error in the UI. 1 second. Right here, I'm checking for the error is present and then pushing to the provider UI. And I've only added for the performance page right now, because it would, for to cover all the endpoints, it would require to centralize the error handling. And I tried to do that, but in the Meshery UI restructuring branch, it is already kind of considered. So it would not make sense to again do in this. Any thoughts about it?
Cool. Yeah. Does anybody have feedback? I think so. This was discussed last week. Part of the feedback, I think there were a couple of different things spoken to, and actually, Uzair, you go by Uzair, right, as your first name?
Mohammad Uzair. First name Mohammad Uzair. Both.
Nice. Okay, gotcha. Do you usually go by both at the same time, or just Mohammed?
Mohammad.
Okay. Sorry, I'm giving you feedback, and it's poor feedback because no one else is saying anything at the moment. I kind of missed some of the things you just showed, which I apologize. But it looks like I think from here, it looks like, have you incorporated, this is an alternative implementation from what you had done the week prior? Is that right? Or is this more or less the same? Have you made changes in the last week? That's what I'm asking.
This is the same change, but I tried to handle the error as a centralized approach that you can see in the another PR I raised. But in the discussion, at Abhishek mentioned that instead of centralizing the error handling, we should centralize the API calls. So I will look into it. I will talk with Abhishek on how to approach this. What will the better approach? So this is kind of same implementation.
Okay. Yeah. Just for what it's
so
worth.
This redirects to the provider page, right? In case there's an error.
Yep.
It displays the modal and it's redirect to the provider UI.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. The function name, probably, if this function is intended to handle expired tokens, so we should maybe use a different, unless that's a standard error handler for any type of error. So Mohammed, this one's specific.
Well, it's in the dashboard, and it said open is to open a model, right? Just in the dashboard, I mean.
Yes. In the all for all calls that requires performance request, it's all the fetch calls for the performance test.
Yeah. So yeah, Mohammed, we ideally the approach is a bit more in middleware, like that. There's a single universal way to handle any. It's both, like when a backend call is received with a token that's expired, that the user would be redirected to the login page, which is that 3000 on line 150. Is that a port number, or is that is that 3 seconds?
3 seconds.
Oh, okay. So that's good. But then, yeah, on the front end, it's ideal if someone walks away for 12 hours, they come back, they sit down, that a modal would be present. That on the client side, that the UI would understand, even without a backend call, that their token is expired, and that they would have been redirected to log in. That essentially their token expires, so they're basically logged out, except the UI wouldn't have done anything, and it would it would look as if the user can do things in the UI. They might try to click around and they'll have errors because unbeknownst to them, their token is expired. So instead, yeah, in JavaScript, if we're auto redirecting to the login page because their token expired and is no longer valid and they're essentially logged out. So they should be taken to the logout page, which is the login page. Yeah, that's ideal behavior as well. But as you implement it, that we wouldn't like part of what concerns me is that as you described, like the fact that this approach is handling all the calls on the performance page. It's like, well, yeah, that's good, but actually the approach we want to have be universal and centralized. So it sounds like that's part of the feedback that you're working on now.
Yes, I discussed with Abhishek and he mentioned that this is considered in they will implement with Axios. So means they will all centralize all the API calls at one place, and there only all the failures like fetch failures, error from the server or authentication error will be handled at one place. So this function here, this part of the function here will be replaced in that one single function, and then universally all the error handling will be considered.
Can I make a suggestion? So about what Lee suggested, so in order for the front end to be able to know that the token is expired without sending any request, well, we could use a timer, and then we would only have to know what is the expiry of that token. So it could be retrieved from the token itself. What's the expiry? And then that timer could be started to a minor time. Let's say that the token is good for an hour, which I believe. Not sure if that'd be true for all of the authentication mechanisms we have or support. But once we know that, we would set a timer to like a little less than an hour. And then once that timer expires, we would show the model and then just let the user act upon the model, which would then be redirect him to the login page. So a timer, basically.
Okay, means without calling the server in the UI itself, check for the session expiry, right?
Well, yeah, and the time, yeah. Well, basically the timer it wouldn't check for expiry like every time the timer runs. Only it would only trigger once the expiry is close to happening. And yeah, well, yeah, basically that's it. That's the approach we use in a project I work on, my work. So that worked very good.
I will try to do this.
Yeah, well, if everyone agrees, that's what we want to do. Of course, just suggesting, but maybe it doesn't fulfill our specific requirements. Because the current approach, let's say we follow the current one, that means that in order for the user to get, let's say their token is expired, they wouldn't be redirected until there's a request happening, right? So it would look as if they were logged in until they try to do something, correct?
Correct.
So would using a timer, anyone else can confirm, like would using a timer help to have this like have the front end be able to handle this without a backend call? And that's what we want, right?
Yes, we can handle this without the backend, I guess.
Yeah, right. That both the backend and front end should be, the backend should be, the front end handling it is for user experience and just improving that so that people aren't sitting there wondering what's going on. And then they kind of click around, they're like, oh, I guess my token is bad. That yeah, if the expiry time is tracked in a cookie, that can be checked with some regularity. There are no doubt any number of patterns that different apps use. like Mario was saying about a timer. Yeah, the use of a cookie and probably makes some sense here. On the back end, certainly in Golang, like most of the APIs are protected anyway, and they won't let anyone invoke an API unless there is a valid token that's unexpired. So much of that is handled already. I think users are redirected to sign in from the back end already, I think.
Yes, the users are redirected, but there is the cause wildcard origin error.
Cool. Yeah, good. Mario, I don't know if that was, or Mohammed, if you need any more feedback. So taking a fair.
Well, in my experience, my work, we used to use a cookie, but we saw that in Safari there were some problems because of like the restriction, like certain browsers restrict like cross-origin cookies and so on. And then so it happened in Safari, and we researched, and Chrome would enable that kind of restriction that certain cookies wouldn't be the browser wouldn't allow them to run from like to read it from different origin than the front end. I think this wouldn't be an issue here because Meshery front and back end are supposed to have the same origin, but I don't know where the token the cookie would come from. So that would be something to consider. Even though we have a cookie, we would still have to read it, like just check it constantly, right, or in a certain interval. So we would still have either a set timeout or a timer. Like the mechanism to check for the expiry on the front end would have to be defined clearly. Like, what do we want? Like, the clearer the better, so that we can have at least requirements of how it should behave, and then maybe the mechanism could be like derived based on exactly what we want. And that's all.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if that was clear at all, but the Mohammed, the implementation instead of Axios centralized for the front end sounds great. The central redirect that understands when the user's token is expired, and yeah, either a cookie or local storage or something similar. And yeah, watching out for the things that Mario just mentioned. So hooking up with Abi is probably a good thing to do. When you do in Slack, there's a thread right now that you could follow up on. Cool. What's next?
All right. Thanks, Mohammed. Moving on, we have Jared with his PR on expired tokens. Jared, would you like to share your screen?
Sure. And so I just wanted to be clear. So we're almost kind of working on the same issue, correct? I mean, this is checking for expired tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is a very decentralized approach, I think you guys are going to see. Because rather than, I don't know, that was just an interesting thought, because basically what I'm doing is I'm sending a request, and based on the status code returned 302, I'm checking for that, and if that is a status code returned, then that would be an expired token, and I'm generating an error message based on that. So I don't know. I guess my question is Mohammed's methodology kind of what we're going for, a more centralized approach rather than just having an extra check as I've kind of added here? Is this, am I confused? Is this separate issues or kind of the same thing?
Yeah, same goals. They're like same behaviors desired. I'm sorry, same ultimate effect, common hopefully commonalities in terms of user experience. They are two different clients. So, and there's kind of three areas to handle expired user tokens. So one is in Meshery server, where, which is, for the most part, receiving API requests. Most of those API requests that come from Meshery CLI are REST-based API requests. Meshery's REST-based API requests to Meshery server. Meshery server needs to, it does today, but it does today check for a valid token. And if it's expired, that's one way that it's invalid and that request is rejected. So in Meshery UI, we're protected today. The system and the app is intact and kind of protected today. What we're working on here is UX from two different clients of Meshery servers UI. And so the UX here is all command line stuff. So the response so for most commands that people run with Meshery CTL, or most of Meshery CTL's commands require a valid token. Why? Well, because most of Meshery servers APIs require a valid token. There's like one or two APIs that don't. It's the one of them is about checking the version of Meshery CTL. It's a naked API in part because it just helps with understanding, is Meshery up, and what version is that, and can I tell what the health of it is before I really get in and sign in. And that type of information, people can use it to help gain additional knowledge to hack the system. But like so anyway, that's why that one's open. So the rest of it is, the messages that we were giving back on the UI, on the CLI, were kind of inconsistent. Sometimes we would say, sometimes we would just give them gobbledygook, like, system failure 90,000. And so you're working on improving, sort of centralizing that and just saying, hey, helping the user, like actually in some respects, in some areas, various things that we've done is when the user's trying to maybe, like, let's say they're trying to pull a list of performance tests, but they have an unauthenticated token. Like, well, we're probably 99% sure that the next thing that they're going to want to do is get a token so that then they can run the command again. Like, what were they trying to do? Run the command. What prevented them? Of all the things that were possible, the thing that prevented them was an expired token or an invalid token or a token that's not present. So what are they probably going to do now? They're probably going to want to run Meshery CTL system login. So we should definitely just tell them explicitly, or maybe we should run it for them, or suggest that we would run it for them. Maybe we should take it a step further. Maybe, but certainly starting with just a concise set of English words that says you're unauth, or like you don't have a good token. Here's how you get one. Yeah, that's the. And then yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, I was just okay. So it's basically the same problem, but two different clients and two different. Okay, makes sense. Well, yeah, kind of like I said, this is the opposite of a centralized approach. I'm just throwing in an extra check for these commands for a 302 status code, and then I created a new error that was like a little more informative. It'll tell you if there's an expired token, and then suggest that you log in to generate a new one. And so far I just have it working with these perf commands, and I have an expired token I've stashed away. I don't have to make a new one.
You've patiently awaited the expiry time.
Yeah. So anyways, it's just sitting back. This token is expired. Please log in to generate a new token. And I can do the same thing with the rest of these perf commands.
Awesome. I mean, for my part, like that language is looking pretty good. It's pretty concise. I kind of, as a separate but related note, I kind of think we're shoving the help text in people's faces maybe too much, because you have this nice message that's exactly what's going on. Expired token, here's what you do. And then we print out all this other stuff. And it's like, maybe we don't need to do that. And that's kind of that's sort of an aside. It's related, but an aside.
Oh, you mean like the examples?
Yeah. I mean, like, because that wasn't quite the thing in this case. Like, like they can always run help if they need to. Like we need to expect a little that our users of some level of familiarity with CLI commands. And if they want help, they'll ask for it. Like in certain areas, I think that we should shove out the help text and say like, hey, but in this one, it's like, no, it's not that they typed the command wrong. It's that wasn't the problem. It's not like they need instruction on what command to run. It's like, no, they don't have a good token. So that's the problem. They don't need this superfluous stuff. The other thing, as you think about, so as you think about the centralization of this functionality, like ideally this check that you have written and literally in the code, in Meshery CTL code, the words error authentication token is expired. Literally that would ideally only be written once in the code and that's it. And that all commands that require authentication flow through this check that like, and so when you, just like what I was saying to Mohammed is, when Mohammed says, well, hey, so I've got this for the performance calls. And Jared says, well, hey, I've got this for the performance calls. It's like, well, that's good. But it also sort of is indicative of like, it's not as central as it would ideally be. Like you'd ideally say, yeah, I've got this for any call that needs validation. And it's only written once. And that's in part because Jared doesn't want to repeat himself. It makes it hard to sustain and makes it bugs come in and all that stuff. It also drives consistency and a high quality user experience because they get the exact same thing no matter what. So
yeah, that was I think that was suggested, and to be honest, I just kind of wanted to get something working at all before I kind of went on. So yeah, that's definitely kind of, because you mentioned a few different other commands that require a token. So that's definitely something I can kind of tackle next, is putting it all in a neat little method that can just be reused everywhere. But is this, I guess, is this the best methodology, just checking the status code, or maybe go a little deeper and see if we can check the expiry directly from it?
That's a good one. Took the words out of my mouth. I am ignorant there. That would be ideal, right? Because you kind of want to check it as close to source as possible. It's like, hey, don't even bother with the call if you can figure out that it's just not even going to work anyway. Let's not put the load on the server. Let's not do that. You're on the right path. Sounds like, yeah, this is great, man. It sounds like you're on the right path. Like exactly what you said is true. Hey, look, you're being iterative, like just seeing if you can get something going. If it looks kind of right, it does look kind of right. Yeah, hey, if you've got it working for the response, so that's good. In some respects, like here's the thing, like while it would save some system cycles to be able to check that token locally, there's another, and we've fallen into this trap any number of times. There's another thing that engineers will fall into, and that is like an over curation of like overextend, like over engineering, trying to get the best experience. Because what might happen, like let's say we do know how to check for the token expiry locally before we ask the server. It's like, okay, well, in some respects, it's like, well, hey, whatever the server is doing to do that, why don't we just do that here? And it would be the same principle that we would bump into again, the one that Mario just mentioned, which is don't repeat yourself. Like that functionality that verifies expiry time, how many times should it be written? Once. Why? Because quality and consistency is driven, and sustainability is driven through a single implementation. And so there's always, in any aspect of software engineering, there's always these like this this constant system of trade-offs between, well, are we going for the best UX at all costs to like, or are we satisfied with this round trip thing that might happen from the user's perspective? They couldn't actually tell if there was, I mean, most people on the CLI wouldn't really know if like the call went out or not. So it wouldn't really improve their UX. We would save a cycle, but we would make it harder to sustain. And later when we changed how the token, when we switched token types or something, then we've got to go re-implement in two places. And so. wow, we just went in a big circle and said, I guess that it wouldn't be advantageous to check locally.
Yeah. I was wondering for the CTL, how bad of an idea would it be for this flow to like involve the login that would save the user like writing up the system login?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Like, I think it's kind of like it can be reasoned, like it can be justified that what I was saying before is pretty much, I think you could say is, essentially universally true, that someone ran a command, it looks correct. We tried to invoke it. The response back from the server was, that you have an expired token. Like, is that how many times would people just say, well, shit, I have to have a real token. Yeah, forget it. I'm not going to run the command. Or, I'm going to try to do a different one that doesn't require. It's like, no, they all are going to require that. So to Mario's point, it's like, it might be delightful. We do want to do some delightful things to people, for people, to say, to not make it arduous, because people might roll their eyes. If they really find value in Meshery or in the tool, they might roll their eyes and say, okay, fine, I'll run this other command, I'll figure that out, and I'll go through that hassle. But some people might hit that wall and be like, you know what, and walk away. So yeah, if this might be a good, if we can tell them this, we could also then say, log you in, or like, please log in with this, log in now, run, and they could answer yes, no. We do that. There's examples of prompting the user. I think we're using a library called Prompt UI, I think. Not Prompt UI, but something else, prompt. If other people have an opinion, I mean, like this comes down to, we're creating a curated experience. We're being opinionated about how that behaves. We hope that we're leaning into something that's delightful and what the user would expect. Actually, we're hoping what we do to create delight, what we're hoping we do is do the slightly unexpected. Like, they sort of expected they were going to have to deal with that hassle themselves, do what they want to do, but do it for them. And that will, yeah. So long-winded way of saying, yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
Well, yeah, I can work on that. So I would think you would almost just return just that message and kind of drop all the example stuff usage and just say, hey, you want to log back in type thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, right. It's part of error token, or just, yeah, authentication token is expired. Log in, or run the, I guess it depends on what the login command executes, and whether or not there are scenarios in which someone would want to configure Meshery before they run system login. But yeah, either asking them or just invoking it on their behalf. Token expired, log in, like it just prompted with the login prompt. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, he really likes the Zoom calls.
Oh, was it a cat or a?
Yeah, it's my cat.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, one question. Yeah. So about the front end, do we have a way of refreshing the access token? Maybe this is more specific to OpenID or Okta authentication, but just wondering if along with the token there's another token to refresh that token, and maybe that we could make it make the front end like invoke an endpoint to refresh the token. That would be like the most seamless user experience possible, but not sure if it's possible here.
Mario, that's a perfect, for my part, like that's a perfect suggestion. Let me come back to you, because last I recollect, the system that we're using has that ability. we just didn't get far enough to. The system has that ability. We're not taking advantage of it, and I don't think that we got far enough to like configure it.
Enable that configure. Okay, got it. Maybe that's some improvement for later. Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds great. Really, it's a really good suggestion.
All right. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Mario. Moving on, Richa, would you like to share something on the spinners that you've been working on?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently working on two animation part, one mesh sync and one SPM pattern icon. And the spinner one is not fully ready as I was not well from last couple of days. And one of the problem I'm facing is that the spinning part is not available in SVG Artist. So I'm kind of stuck at how to spin the logo. And the second missing icon, I have updated the ClickUp and I've attached the screen recording and need your feedback. So I can share my screen and show you here also. Will it be fine?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
By the way, Richa, I just couldn't get okay. So what was the problem with speeding the icon?
So I need to animate this component
On the UI?
Yeah.
Okay. So in which format this icon is exported? Like you have created this
.svg.
And that SVG image has the animation inbuilt. Like we are using this software, so like how this animation is exported is what I would like to ask.
So I had this a .svg file of this icon. I imported it in SVG Artist and then created the animation. And now I will copy the CSS and SVG part and then import in the mesh map folder.
Okay.
I need to see the workflow of mesh map where it needs to get updated.
And the CSS is not working in your current workplace.
The mesh map. Let me see if I have right now. Yeah. So I have updated the CSS and right now mesh map is crashing. I'm getting this error.
So let's forget about mesh map for a while. Like let's do it in a simple React component. Like we are the same icon we are using in Meshery also. So just create a commit so that we all can see commit. And yeah, commit.
Abhishek,
yes.
There was I had previously worked on a loader kind of thing, and I had created a GIF. Actually, if we can, the GIF is animated as well, and I have the CSS and PSD, sorry, Photoshop and After Effects file as well, which is exported in alpha channel. Alpha means there's no background for it. Even though if you use it in anywhere, it doesn't have any background. HTML, I guess HTML allows JSX allows GIF animation.
GIF animation, yes, it does. It does. Because she already had CSS, so that's why. But yeah, your suggestion is also great. Okay, let's see.
So let me just comment and then you can comment back, right?
Yeah. That
let me just make a PR.
Yes. That would be even better.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Richa. Lee, would you like to talk about the Meshups V2 that we have coming up for Meshery 0.7?
Oh yeah, sure. So, well, let me see. I think I have Meshery running somewhere. What an embarrassment if I don't. I was just trying to get her some questions answered. Oh, good. Here's a Meshery instance. What do you know? I've got a Meshery instance running. That's all right. So those that have, and I don't think I have Kubernetes running, so that I'm getting those errors. All right, it's no secret. We've been trying to get Meshery v0.6 out the door, land the plane, put the pencil down, finish the dang thing. So all the euphemisms that I can throw at it that doesn't help get get it out the door, but we're almost there, right? We're almost ready to release. Extremely close. We've been focusing on quality and quality. Anyway, once .6 is out, there's a litany, there's a whole lineup of what's next for in Meshery's roadmap. Where might you find that? Well, 2 places. Meshery's, well, a bunch of places, Meshery's roadmap, but specifically all the things about .7 is in the Meshery architecture deck, which isn't necessarily the most obvious place. So that's why in part it's put out here so that people can discuss it. So here's the proposed .7 roadmap that's been out there for a little while. There's a number of people that are on this call who are identified as feature champions or epic champions. However, some of these aren't necessarily features as much as they are, what do you call it, tech debt or just internal systems. Doesn't matter. These folks are identified as to champion these areas. There's a bunch of areas. One of those areas, one of the bigger areas is Meshery UI. So since I've spent some time contributing to Meshery, it's okay for me to say this. It's okay to call our baby ugly or to say that the current user interface uses what is referred to as Meshups v1. So this system that I'm running, it's just Meshery server. I don't have any adapters connected, but the adapters to date, they have a collection of operations that are exposed over gRPC between the adapters and Meshery server. Those operations are, in large part statically configured. Like there's an operation in the linkerd adapter to install linkerd, and it might accept a couple of configurations. Now that said, does that mean that there's just a couple of configurations by which linkerd is run? Oops. 1 second, I'm going to bring up. No, there's a bunch of ways to configure linkerd. There's a bunch of ways to configure traffic mesh. One moment, I'm just bringing up. There's a bunch of ways to configure each of the service meshes. 1 second. Okay, well, so that static, the way of defining these operations in a static sense is not scalable. Like it's hard enough to keep track of a single mesh and provide all the ways that you can configure it. And then as that mesh changes over time to then update those operations to reflect all the possible ways that you can configure it. And so in that initial, the initial approach to the way that we're interacting with a given mesh is Meshups v1, these service mesh operations in their first incarnation. And so they're very rigid. So if you've used this interface, there's not, it's like, do you want to install a traffic mesh? Yes. All right. That's it. Like, did you get any choice? Like, well, what version did you want to install? Well, like what there's all kinds of choices about what you might want to do. Point is, that's been redesigned, and there's the Meshups v2 now. So all the adapters, all of them are capable of such a higher degree of configurability in terms of the operations that you want to invoke. So if you want to install traffic mesh, you can supply hundreds of different combinations or thousands of different combinations of configurations in the way in which you want to do that. All right, so then we need a UI that's quite expressive and allows people to express those different designs to really take advantage of that many different permutations of the ways in which you can configure these service meshes. And so the way that that's begun to play out in terms of user experience right now is about going through this configurator to design to really configure all the things you might want to do for a given mesh. So I guess long story short, I think what Aditya was asking me to do is to say that as we lean into .7, which is it's upon us now, is to turn away from this static way of interacting and redesign, not, largely like this lifecycle management section, redesign a few of the other UIs as well, to shift away from this Meshups of V1 and shift into something that's much more powerful, much more configurable. So there's thought to be given. So here's some thought as to how it is that user experience can would work. So you'd navigate through the hundreds of different ways in which you're looking to configure your service mesh, build it out. So it's a configurator. It's kind of like ordering a new laptop. What model did you want? I'll take the Kuma one. Whoops. I'll take the Kuma one. What did you want on it? This, and this. And then you kind of place your order. You click deploy. Go. Aditya, was that what you were looking for? Okay. So part of that is that there's been pretty consistently a call to arms, a call to people to work through that re-implementation of different aspects of the UI. It's not just about a new UX and taking advantage of Meshups v2. It's certainly about that, but it's also about the frameworks that are used in the user interface. In .7, there's an integration of Redux and use of observables. So some different state management to go on. And so there's an overhaul of the UI. Like essentially all the components rewritten. There's a number of you that are participating in this already. If you're not, it's an open opportunity to jump in on the ground floor. So different components are being rewritten or in the progress of being rewritten, and they're being done so in context of integration of Redux. So there's a lot about where to jump in, how to engage. Abhi Kumar's one individual of a few to speak to about that. There's any of the individuals actually that are listed in here are also people to speak to about that because they've walked the path already. So I'll be quiet now.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, before going to the next item, just Lee told me to speak about the Meshery 0.7. So yeah, there is a lot of work and there's a lot of new opportunities to learn like the best practices and follow those. And there are already notes available here. If you just scroll down below Lee. So yeah, where all the Meshery UI contribution guide are written. Yes, there. So please do check out. And yeah, if you are good at designs at Figma, then yeah, we definitely need, because we are writing the UI again. So why not with a better design, right? And we need it actually. So yeah, that's an open call. And thanks for having it.
Mr. Subedi, do you want to take it away? I think, is this you, Aditya? Or is this Shubhi?
Yeah, me. But yeah, so I wanted a quick demo on the compatibility matrix that I'm working. Just share my screen. Is my screen visible?
No.
Your skin's visible, your screen is not visible. Just kidding.
All right. I think I have to rejoin. I'll just rejoin quick. Wait, we can move on to the next topic.
Sounds good. Yash, you're up.
Let me show my screen. So I was working on the navigation component for the restructuring UI. Last week, we decided to change the collapse and expand arrow. This is the demo for it. The thing I'm concerned is the collapse state, the button isn't quite visible. As Lee and I talked, and Lee just suggested to invert the color and flipping it's inside the menu in the collapse state. So I just want to ask, should we change the color for it or do something new?
So when we are collapsing, why we are not just sticking to the design that in which the way we are opening it, it should be same as in the collapse state.
Keeping it outside.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yes.
Lee suggested that there was another menu or something, I don't remember.
What if we decrease the opacity or making it in a lighter shade, the background of the button, and then probably add a subtle drop shadow to it?
Yes, and guess what? Aditya has already a design for it. Yes. Other than that, if that icon is like a concern, like which is looking very small, then you can use a play icon like we use in one of the configurations. So if the small icon is a problem, otherwise I think the design should be consistent with respect to opening and closing the drawer. So while in the closed state, it should be the same as while in the open, just inverted arrow.
Yeah.
Like we have taken the inspiration from the maps and they are doing the same exact thing.
That's what I did first, keeping it outside only. But we said there was another menu, something that would I don't really remember.
Yeah, the problem with the chevron is as we see in Meshmap, like it collides with the designer drawer, right? So it's very hard to distinguish that there's a chevron.
So that's a separate concern, Aditya. Like so probably we know and we need a.
Yeah, it's not.
We need to push the mesh map backward. Isn't it?
No, it's not. Like I explained this a few different times. So we okay. How to be concise. So so we're asking for it to be on the inside. We're asking for the opacity to be dropped here. Aditya, I just got done doing this. I don't know where it is now. Did you know?
It must be somewhere in WAP.
Okay, I don't know. The reason being that we want to drop this opacity. We want so Avi's is not wrong necessarily or onto its own. Is that there's another drawer that comes out here in the extension for Meshmap, and if this is laying out on top of it, that ain't gonna work, Avi. Which I think if you think about it a little bit more, you'll conclude the same thing. That so with the arrows that all we're trying to do really here, guys, is just extremely simple. It's extremely simple. We're just trying to mimic Google Maps. So, by the way, if you can figure out where I live, try to. Anyway, so Google Maps. This is blow it up a little bit. So Yash, I don't know.
You're not sharing your entire screen.
Oh, okay. Damn it. So I've shared this. It is so painful. I don't know how many times we've talked about this. Just this one. So do this exactly, please, which is here's a tab, here's a drawer. It's the arrow is pointing that way. So make sure it's pointing the same direction that this is.
It's
you click it.
in the same direction.
Oh, thank you, sir. You click it and it goes to 0 pixels. That's not exact, and it flips around, right? Not exactly what we're looking to do, because we'll always have, I don't know, what is it? 3 or so rem wide. We're gonna always have a small menu, right? That shows you that is a sidebar. We'll always have the sidebar. It'll collapse. It won't totally go away. So it's a little bit different, which is fortunate for us because it leaves us a little bit of room to get this button out of the way. Why do we need it out of the way? Oh, because we have multiple levels of sidebars. And if this is hanging out here, this will hang out on top of other elements that people won't be able to click. And so, cool. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions?
No. So are we going to do this design we are seeing on the screen?
Yeah. Unless this doesn't, unless it doesn't make sense.
Don't you think like the concern is still there when the drawer is in open state? Because even if the drawer is in open state, so we have to, when we are opening Meshmap, then there is a drawer.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So that's in part why when someone opens Meshmap, this drawer, this sidebar should be auto collapsing. If you find that that's not the behavior, then we have a bug.
Yeah. So that will go in a Meshmap call direction, but yeah, that looks good.
Okay, I will do that. And should I change the icon? Just like you showed, the icon is little changed. So should I change it or keep the current thing?
Oh, to a small caret or to a small triangle rather than a chevron?
An arrow. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Give it a shot.
Okay.
I don't know. Probably not, because it's inconsistent with the way that we're using the chevrons everywhere else, which is we're teaching the user to click a chevron to expand and collapse stuff. So which is the same thing they're going to be doing here. This one it looks slightly different, but it's the same function that the user is performing. So we should probably stick with the same chevron, unless someone can justify something else. I dare you. No. Like you could say like, well, technically, like you're flipping it around like this one. Yeah, it expands and collapses, but like it's flipping around too. It's going to like move on the user. And so it's a little bit different. So maybe you want to indicate, like they're both arrows, but this one's slightly different and it's behaving slightly different. And then we would take it offline and we would probably just let Subedi do his thing so everybody can get out of here on time. Aditya, please take it away.
Yeah.
Then Leo just keep talking to himself. Sorry.
So this is the compatibility matrix that I worked on. Now the pages show the latest results according to the sort of each service mesh. So I was just gonna ask, like, is this the desired state? Like, and I've also implemented a to see past results, click here tab, which when we click it, we go to all the results of the past of Istio.
Aditya, you're sharing your VS Code.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
yeah, now it's showing, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, so this is the implementation that I did. All the latest test according to the service mesh shown in the compatibility matrix page. And when we click on one of them, we can click here to see all the past results that the service mesh that has been done on the service mesh. So like, is this the desired state or there needs to be something changed? Yeah, the breadcrumb thing is I couldn't figure out how this works. So I will be consulting with Aditya about this, but other than that.
What are you using to figure out what's latest? Just the date and the time, right?
Yeah. And yeah, there's, so we are sorting through the date and the time, but I think there is an issue with the sort because of the way we are storing the timestamp. We are storing the timestamp in this format. So when we sort now, the sorting happens on the basis of alphabetically on the day. So So yeah, as you can see, if Tuesday, January 6th, the test was done, but still we will get Wednesday, January 5 as the latest results. So if we can change the timestamp of the integration test to something in this format, then the sorting will be done correctly with the latest result at the top, and it will be shown correctly in this page also.
And also we'll have two test results for each of the service mesh, one for edge and one for stable. So if there is no latest result for stable, you can skip that. But if there is, then we would need basically two rows per service mesh, one for the edge and one for the stable latest.
Okay, so for the same service mesh, edge and stable, and if edge is not present, then just display the stable.
No, I mean edges, when any PR is merged, that result is registered as edge. But when a release is made, then instead of edge, you'll have the version of that particular component, like the version of that Istio adapter release. So I'm saying that if the latest Istio adapter is let's say 5 point something, then it should be like one row says edge, the other one says 5 point something. So yeah, so one sort you can do on the basis of date, another you can do on the basis of version, so the latest one, and other than that the edge one. So if you get what I'm saying.
Okay. So okay, yeah, I get it. So we have to do two sortings according to version as well as timestamp. And if and what, like, I didn't get which one we have to show.
So basically so for basically first you think in terms of edge, so you sort for all the edges, for all the edge type of version, and there you will do sorting just like you're doing right now on the basis of time. Nothing changes there. The only row that I'm asking you to add is in that row you use two parameters to sort, one the date and also the version. So for the first, you'll find the latest version. Actually, there you would not even need the date. You just need the latest version. What is the latest version? So, for example, if the latest version is v something point something, you'd show that result in. And for edge, you'll just do simple your time-based sorting.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, okay, that's right. And can we like change this timestamp format like in somehow?
Yeah, it works with me.
Yeah, okay, so that, and yeah, so when we change the timestamp, do we still want the show in this page in this format, or this format is fine?
So I think the format that you're saying is the file name, right?
No, the timestamp field of inside the file.
So I think we should what are you using to sort, the file name or the inside of the file, the timestamp?
Timestamp field.
Okay, for me, I think it works even if it doesn't say Wednesday, Jan, something, because people are not living in UTC, so it doesn't matter. So you can, I mean, if no one has any problem with it, I think the last row, the pattern in the last row works with me. So we can work with that. Other than that, we will actually this particular thing has been hard coded into each of the workflows. So while you're at it, can you please create an issue inside of each of the adapters to so that basically your job would be to go inside of the adapter, and there you'll find e2e tests.yaml, and if you'll scroll down, you'll find a job that would say update the docs. That job is going to add these tests there, and there you'll find inside of the timestamp in few of the adapters, in most of the adapters, the above format would be there, like Wednesday, Jan 5. So if you get time, you can update it to the last to the format that you're saying, or you can create an issue and someone else would pick it up. It's pretty straightforward issue. So if someone wants to change this thing, you will need to go in. You can go in any of the adapters, go inside of the .github workflows. You will find the e2e test.yaml. Go to the job update docs, and you can update the format from that format to the format that we just talked about.
Or you can reformat it in Jekyll. You just use I popped over a link that you can check out.
Yeah, okay. That also works.
Just can you demo again real quick? Where do you go see all the rest of the results for a given component?
Yeah. Okay, so when we click on the latest results,
okay. All right, nice. Is Shubham working on this as well?
No,
Shubham is
I'm-
working on error codes navigation.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So we're at the top of the hour and we're done with the agenda. So thank you all for joining. I'll see you guys on Friday on the community call or next week at the same time. So thanks for joining, guys. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, bye.
Bye everyone.
Yes. Bye.